In a surprise move against the sitting president, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, has issued a public rebuke of Donald Trump. The statement reads, "For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeaching is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose." The statement was published in response to Trump's unhinged post on Truth Social, reading, "This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, who was not elected president. He didn't win the popular vote by a lot. He didn't win all 7 swing states. He didn't win 2,750 to 525 counties. He didn't win anything. I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate, but fighting illegal immigration may have been the number one reason for this historic victory. I'm doing just what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers, in our country. Make America great again." This was born out of a decision handed down by Judge Boasberg, which sought to block the Trump administration from continuing its effort to remove flights of alleged Venezuelan gang members from the United States. I would normally call them deportation flights, but the reality is that the accused migrants didn't get due process. We don't actually know who was even on the plane. They weren't charged. They were simply disappeared. You can imagine why, even for people who may be as heinous as gang members, I'm opposed to the idea of establishing the precedent that Trump can legitimately disappear people with zero due process. And look, if they are indeed gang members, then prove it in court, and if it's true, deport them. But without that due process, what we're saying is that the accusation alone from the Trump administration is enough to warrant deportation. Again, do we really want to establish the precedent that all Trump has to do is accuse someone of being in a gang and then boom, they're deported? Do you really believe that this administration is trustworthy enough that they wouldn't include, non-gang members in their roundups, that they can then just claim our gang members as a pretense to be able to easily deport them? Again, if they are gang members, if they're criminals, if they've done anything wrong, I will be the first one to applaud their departure. I want my city to be just as safe as anyone else does, left, right, or center. But we are a nation of laws, so we should follow them. I spoke with Congressman Jamie Raskin about this exact point. Here's what he had to say. The hill that they're dying on is that we shouldn't have due process in deference to the fact that they want to expedite these deportations.
I mean, they make a mockery out of the rule of law. I had a professor who started one of my classes by saying, what are the 2 most beautiful words in the English language? And he said, due process, because that's where we can figure out if, first of all, they've got the right person, right? They may have the wrong person with the same name. They may have somebody who looks like the other person. They might just be sweeping up an entire family. There might be citizens in there for all we know, along with permanent residents, along with undocumented people. So nobody even knows because there's no due process. Yeah. And then there's no opportunity for evidence to be heard on both sides, for people to be legally represented, for people to sum up their case and have a conclusion. That's what due process is all about. And the rule of law, if you think about what the American Revolution was all about, there was law, obviously, under the kings, under the monarchs. The rule of law is that it binds people in power as well. It applies to the rulers as well as to the rabble.
In fact, even the Murdoch-owned New York Post echoed this claim with a headline that reads, "Sorry, Elon, even deporting illegal gangbangers must heed the rule of law." Again, it is not extreme nor even a left-wing position to demand that we abide by the very basic elements of law and order. And by the way, this is a Republican theme. This is what Republicans have been beating their chest about for years. As for John Roberts, some context on why he might be taking the extraordinary step of issuing a public rebuke of Donald Trump. In his 2024 report on the judiciary, he talked about increasing violent threats against judges. Quote, "There is, of course, no place for violence directed at judges for doing their job. Yet in recent years, there's been a significant uptick in identified threats at all levels of the judiciary. According to United States Marshal Service statistics, the volume of hostile threats and communications directed at judges has more than tripled over the past decade. In the past 5 years alone, the Marshals report that they have investigated more than 1,000 serious threats against federal judges. In several instances, these threats have required the assignment of full-time U.S. Marshal Service security details for federal judges, and approximately 50 individuals have been criminally charged." And look, I of course don't want to victim shame, but this court has emboldened the very person responsible for this uptick in threats against judges with its every action. It was this court that allowed Donald Trump to enjoy this non-existent doctrine of presidential immunity for criminal acts. It was this court that ruled that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, barring an elected official who has engaged in or given aid or comfort to those who've engaged in insurrection from running for office again, didn't apply to him. It has been this court that's given Donald Trump cover over and over. So while I of course decry any and all violence, let's be clear about why that violence is so pervasive in the first place. It's because these very people sitting on that court, including John Roberts himself, have enabled the very man responsible for inciting it. You don't get to complain about the monster when you yourself are Dr. Frankenstein. I asked former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner about the fact that even the Supreme Court is recognizing the dangers posed by Trump. Here's what he had to say.
This is dangerous. We have seen judges like Tanya Chutkin in D.C. and Juan Merchan in New York be put in harm's way. Death threats come pouring in from Trump supporters. Their homes are swatted. In other words, false reports are made to the police that a violent crime happened inside their home, such that SWAT teams show up at judges' homes with guns drawn. I mean, this is the kind of nonsense and garbage and dangerous, inflammatory conduct that really has to stop. And in his, rather subtle way, the Chief Justice of the United States just told Donald Trump and Elon Musk, this has got to stop.
Now, as for the prospect of impeachment, this isn't the only time that this White House has pushed this idea. Just weeks ago, Elon Musk tweeted, for example, federal judges who repeatedly abuse their authority to obstruct the will of the people via their elected representatives should be impeached. With the irony being, of course, that the only abuse of authority is ignoring the law in deference to Trump's corrupt edicts. But that doesn't matter to Elon, who, along with Trump, is drunk on power. Another Elon tweet read, quote, "A corrupt judge protecting corruption, he needs to be impeached now." But the reality is that Donald Trump does and always has viewed himself as being above the law. He himself has said that he wants to terminate the Constitution, that he wants to be a dictator on day one, and since he took office has governed to that effect. And of course, Elon, desperate to consolidate money, power, and influence for himself, will use his platform and his wallet to help Trump consolidate power so that he can entrench his own influence. I should also note, because I want to make sure that you walk away from this video fully informed, that these judges will not be impeached despite Trump and Elon's breathless insistences that they should be. It takes 2/3 of the Senate to impeach a federal official like a judge, meaning Republicans would need about a dozen Democrats to vote to impeach along with them. It's not happening. But the fact that Trump is demanding it is a testament to just how dangerous and autocratic he's become. He thinks he is the king of this country. Our job is to show up at every town hall, call every elected official who represents us, speak out, and take to the streets if we need to show him that he's not. Before you go, first, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we're now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they're willing to cater to this White House. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a great way for me to be able to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's completely free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support my work. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.